Yeah, wait. Move. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, I am ready now whenever you are.
Okay, wonderful. So we are live streaming now, everyone. Welcome. And we've got our candidate, Nisa Filer, for County Assessor, who will be answering some questions for Afro UPRIS today. And I am Tamara Hall. I'm the president. We're going to do quick introductions. Whoever wants to go next.
I'm Chuck Cantrell. I'm the treasurer.
Tony Alexander, President, JW Consulting, and also trustee on the Sound of the Evergreen Community College Board.
Raymond Goins.
Raymond, you can go ahead.
Raymond Goins, Secretary.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, political ambassador with Afro UPRIS.
Derek Grasty, Board Trustee, Mount Pleasant School District, and candidate for Governor of California.
Mayor Curry Nunez, Advanced Consulting LLC, and candidate for Eastside Union High School District, trustee area number 1.
Welcome. Was that everybody? Oh, I believe so. Okay, and of course, we've got our candidate in the space, Nisa Filer. Thank you for making the time. So we're each going to ask a few questions. If you could do up to about 2 minutes, I'm sure you won't spend too much more time than that. That'd be great. So there'll be no timer. After each question, we'll rotate. So it'll go from me to Raymond, to Chuck, back to me, to Elizabeth, and then to Chuck. And then you'll be able to give a closing statement. We'll also hear about Prop 50 and Measure A, since we'll be voting on endorsement for those as well tonight. So, Nisa, first question. If you could please describe for the general public what the county assessor does.
You, Tamara, and funny enough, that is always the first question we get for this assessor candidate forum. But first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Thanks for creating this space for us to have this discussion and debate. I don't know if any other candidates will be joining us, but I'm happy I was able to attend because for me, this is an important group. And then thanks for inviting me. Also, just so you know, it's telling me my network bandwidth is low. So I hope it doesn't get to a point where I have to turn off my camera, but just a heads up. So I am, and just for pronunciation, so Nisa rhymes with Lisa, and then Flagger rhymes, just think FLYGRR for my last name. But very, very happy to be here, and I am running to be the next county assessor. And I am running to ensure the assessor's office continues to work for all residents. And to do that, you really need the right person leading that office and with the right qualifications, experience, and management acumen. And I'm the only candidate in this race that has that unique combination to lead that office starting on day 1. Now, the assessor's office, it's an elected position. I know people are always wondering, why is it elected? It's to create independence and to ensure we have a fair and accurate role. And so we cannot be influenced by friends, bosses, or politicians. And what we do is we identify all accessible property in Santa Clara County, and we assess it and place a value on that property so that will generate property taxes. And these property taxes are then used to fund things in the cities and the counties and public schools, special districts. And when you think of the county and the cities, they use the revenue generated from the work we do to fund public safety, healthcare, roads, parks. It's general fund and it's discretionary. So these recipient jurisdictions can use the revenue generated from the funds from the work we do to provide these vital services. And our assessment role annually is $725 billion, and you do the 1.09% on that for the tax bill. So what we're really looking at is 7.5 for this past year. This past annual role was $725 billion. And so we're really looking at $7.5 billion being distributed among all these different recipient jurisdictions. So it's a sizable amount and a consequential amount, and can really play a big role and make a difference in a lot of these recipient jurisdictions and how they provide services and what services they provide to residents. And so because of the importance of this office, we really need to make sure we have the right leadership there. I'm currently the assistant assessor. I'm number 2 in the office. I'm managing the employees. I'm managing the day-to-day operations. Before that, I was part of the executive management team working on special projects. And before that, I was an attorney for the office, providing legal advice, but also defending appeals filed by property owners. And no other candidate in the race has this direct experience working in the assessor's office. And it is very different. I am vice mayor on the Los Altos City Council. I'm in my second term. I've been mayor, I've been vice mayor and council member. And so what I explain to a lot of folks, really going back to your question, is this is different from serving on council or the board of supervisors, where you do want a mix of backgrounds and skill sets to form policy and laws. For the assessor's office, we're not making policies, we're not making laws. It's really specialized, where what you're looking for is someone who knows the work and can govern and manage that office well. I also am the only candidate with the legally required property tax certification to be a California assessor. And this is legally required. It's not optional. If you're going to be a California assessor, you need to have this property tax certification. And it is not a real estate broker's license. It's not a real estate appraisal license. Those are very small portions of what we do in the assessor's office. A property tax certification covers the breadth of work we do in the office, from residential, commercial, business, personal property, mobile homes, boats, vessels, and the different valuations that we have to do. And that's a certification I have, and it's required because they want to make sure whoever is the assessor understands the full scope of the work in the office. And I'm the only one who has that certification. And I like, I'm an attorney. And one of the analogies I like to use is, and love paralegals. I could not have practiced law without the help of a paralegal, but a paralegal with a paralegal certificate, even if they took law classes and they passed the certificate exam, it doesn't mean they would be ready to be a lawyer on day one. They would still have to take the law classes and then pass the bar exam in order to be an attorney. And so that's the distinction I make when other people cite whatever other qualifications they are, which is great. It just doesn't qualify them to be a California assessor, and it's not an easy transition, as some may want us to think. And so I'm very excited to be the next county assessor. That's what we do. That's what I do. And I love the job, love the work, and I'm ready to go on day one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to move to Raymond for his question.
How does this role impact the average person's life?
As I just mentioned, thanks for that question, Raymond. It is very impactful in everyone's life here in Santa Clara County, because again, the work we do generates so much revenue that pays for vital services in the county in all our different cities. And so when you think about right now with Measure A, that I know you're going to talk about later, where the county is experiencing for next year, a $1 billion deficit, right? And right now, Measure A on the ballot is they're hoping, if it passes, and I've endorsed it, but if it passes, that will bring in a third, $330 million. That alone is not enough to cover healthcare and all the services that we have here in the county. And so the county is even more dependent on the revenue that's generated from our work to backfill the areas where we have federal or state cuts happening. And so when you think about the average person's life, whether it's healthcare, public safety, the roads, the condition of the roads in our individual cities, the parks where our kids play, I could go down the list of the different things we fund. And then in addition to that, the schools, 50% of the revenue generated from our work goes to public schools and community colleges. And they are dependent. And I know Tamara will appreciate this. And Tony, they are so dependent on the revenue dollars that we generate in order to provide the services at the school and help to backfill a lot of their budget items. And so it impacts everyone's life. It impacts the average person's life significantly. And if we don't have this office governed well or managed well, we're really putting that source of revenue at risk. And we can't afford to do that, period. But even now, when we're in a budget crisis, as you know, Susan Ellenberg, who has endorsed me, has said, it is even more critical that we make sure this office is run well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we're going to go to Chuck for the next question.
Actually, Lisa, you've probably done a pretty good job of answering this question, so I'll change it a little bit. So the question is, why are you the most qualified candidate for this position? But I'll just give it a little bit of a twist, and maybe you can help the average voter understand why your unique qualifications are so important.
Thanks, Chuck, and I appreciate that question because I do think voters don't appreciate the difference between an elected assessor and the other elected policymaking officials they normally support. And so let me start with the experience of being an attorney for the assessor's office, being part of the executive management team, and now being the assistant assessor. I know the office. I know the work we're doing in the office. It is very specialized and technical. And so we really need someone who can, I don't have to walk in on the first day. I'm already there. I'll just move offices, but who's able to hit the ground running on that first day. It is not a coincidence that 70% of assessors in California came from within the assessor's office. Right. I have been endorsed by Larry Stone, who was our assessor for 30 years. I've been endorsed by Al Carlson, who was the assessor before Larry, who was our assessor for 29 years. And when I talk to them, they emphasize the importance of really knowing the work. And it's not something you can easily pick up. It's very specialized. So that's the experience piece of it. And it also ties into the qualification of the property tax certification and also being an attorney. Our office is governed by laws and regulations. All the valuation methods we do, all the analysis we do, the appraisal work, it's all governed by laws and regulations. And I already know them. I like to say I know most of them. When I was the attorney for the office, I used to have to advise my clients on these laws and tell them what they could do. If we're getting challenged, I'd say, well, it allows you to do this, but not that. And so having that experience working in the office as an attorney, but knowing the laws is also critical to ensuring that the work done in the office is fair and accurate and we're complying with the law so we don't get the county in trouble. And then from a leadership perspective, again, we're managing, and I'm already doing it. It's a 245 employee office, right? And this is county. I worked in the county. I was part of county council, went to tech, came back. Working in the county, as some of you may appreciate, is so different from working in the tech sector, right? And I know how to navigate county processes, how to get things done in the county. The budget process is different. How you work with the different departments and employees, completely different from the tech sector. So in order to get things done for our department, you need someone who has the understanding and relationships in the county and understands the difference between a public entity and tech sector and how you really get things done. An example of that is, I was brought in last year to be part of the executive management team. And one of the projects I was given was to get us off a 40-year-old COBOL system that our office has been trying for years to move off of, and for different reasons. No finger pointing. There have been 3 or 4 instances where we tried to get off that system and it just never happened. They brought me in last year, and I think the expectation was, let's try our best to see if we can really get us off the old system, because there were so many risks of us continuing to operate using that outdated system. They gave me a team of 42, and I was able to pull us together we spent hundreds of hours together working on figuring out how we can acquire a new solution for the office. We built from what was already done, lessons learned, and we moved it forward. And I was able to lead the effort to acquire a new modern technology solution for the assessor's office. And we've already started implementing the solution. And I'm a team person where I said we're all building this together, and we're going to all succeed and rise together. And that's the kind of environment and space I create in the assessor's office. But being able to do that with that modern technology solution, I had to build on the relationships I already had in the county. I understood how to work with procurement, the CEO's office, county council, understood how the board of supervisors worked in order for us to really move it forward and get it approved by the board unanimously, and for an amount that during these times, you really have to demonstrate why you need a contract approved. And so we're able to do that.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nisa. I'm actually learning a lot, so I appreciate you going into so much detail. And I'm a teacher, so I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn.
I'm talking too
much. So the next question, and you kind of spoke about this a little bit. What are your top priorities in this role? And you can add on, so maybe how you identified your top priorities, and what makes them something that you're really committed to.
Again, I'm going to make the distinction between, so I remember when I ran for city council, of course, everybody asked, what are your priorities? What are the things you're going to push for and advocate for? And you always think of, housing and other top issues, environment, like whatever your passion is or whatever you want to support, safe routes to school. For the assessor's office, I'm going to answer it in two different ways. We have our priorities in the assessor's office, right? You have to think of us as a county department, right?
Will no longer be.
Tomorrow,
I think we're muted now. I think we're okay now. Go ahead.
So the assessor's office, we have our own internal priorities as a department, and they are: one, we have to meet our state mandated role, where we have to close that role, where we have to assess all 500,000 parcels in Santa Clara County, go through that whole rule cycle and get that done by June 30th every year. And so that is our number one priority. We're a lean office. We don't have extra resources. And so that is our number one priority, all hands on deck. We have to meet that legal mandate. We have to close the roll, and we have to make sure it's done well so that we can obviously pass it on to the Department of Tax and Collection so they can move on with the tax bill process. So that's our number one priority in the office, and it is also my priority. The second priority is to continue implementing this modern technology solution. As I mentioned, it's, long time coming. We're finally able to move it forward. We need this new technology. Right now we're working on an antiquated system. And because of that, we've had to build, supplemental tools, have a lot of manual processes in the office. And kudos to the professionals in our office, because even though, they've been working on this old system, they've been able to get it done. It may take a little bit longer, but they get it done and they meet the legal mandate every year. But that is the second priority, implementing this new solution that will automate our processes, increase functionality, increase efficiencies, and just have the data or historical data more readily accessible. And then the third priority in our office, again, is to move our appeals process through on our end as fast as possible. And our new solution will help with that as well. But what I explained to folks is, the appeals process, it doesn't just include the assessor's office. We have other county departments that are involved in the process. So we alone cannot expedite the process by ourselves. So for example, when someone files an appeal, that actually doesn't come to our office. It goes to the clerk of the board. And they're the ones who schedule the hearing, and we have to wait for them to notify us that this appeal is going to be heard on X date. And then we get our troops ready to get ready for the appeal. And that's something I did when I was the attorney as well. I would help with appeals. So those are the three priorities in our offices with the resources we have, and we're focused on those three priorities. In addition to our priorities, or complementing these priorities, one of the things I started doing last year and I'll continue to do is more community engagement. And our office has done community engagement for years. Larry loves being out in the community. our style is just a little bit different, right? I love going into the community, having community gatherings, from Gilroy all the way to Palo Alto, where I want folks to understand the assessor's office, what we do, the programs and services that are available, how we can save them money, because a lot of our programs and services also save homeowners money, veterans money, victims of disaster. We have programs built in. We can do deferments. So there are things that we have in our office that we want to make sure that residents are aware of them so they can take advantage of them. So that's one thing I do plan to do more of, is increase community engagement and make our office more transparent and accessible. Technology will help, but there's some things we can obviously start doing now. And if there are ways to reduce, so for example, we do charge if someone requests a data file or a characteristic file. Right now we charge because we do have our resources having to take time to put these files together. If there are ways to avoid that cost and therefore make the files available to nonprofits, real estate professionals, other public entities, that's something that I think will be a big win for everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Elizabeth, are you able to ask your question?
Yes, I am. Thank you so
Okay.
much for all of this information, Nisa. And my question for you is, what key takeaways would you like the community to know about the work that the county assessor does?
We touched on it, our work, it's a legal mandate where we're tasked with, assessing property, placing a value, and based on that value, it generates property tax bills, which create a revenue source that is so important to our everyday lives here in Santa Clara County. And so the takeaway for voters, I would say is, this is too important of an office to have someone who really doesn't know the work, someone, and it's very technical. We have jargon that some of these candidates have demonstrated they don't understand, right? So this work is so important that we really need to put, everything else aside that we normally make voter decisions on when it comes to elected officials, and really look at the candidates to say, who has the experience? Who is ready to go? Who can we rely on to make sure there's stability in this office, which is key at this time while we still move forward. And we also need someone who will support the staff in the office. So, I'm proud to have the endorsement of South Bay Labor Council, SEIU, the Democratic Party. I recently got the endorsement of the Merck, Sam Liccardo. Many of you on this Zoom, I know, are familiar with the other endorsers. I have, I can't remember the list. I don't have it in front of me, but it's growing, and I think it's because people are realizing. I think when this whole process started, to Tamara's question at the beginning, a lot of people didn't understand what we did in the office, because Larry has been our assessor for 30 years. And to his credit, no one knew. He was just, the office was doing its work, generating the revenue, and that's it. Like, that's all people knew about the assessor's office. Larry was the assessor, and they did this obscure thing that ended up generating revenue. So over the last couple of months, where I think people have started realizing and learning what the office actually does and the importance of the work and what really qualifies someone to be an assessor, I have seen my support grow. I've seen my endorsement list grow. And it's because I think people are really appreciating the importance of the work. And that's the takeaway, right? We really should have someone in this role who can do the job and do it well. And I am the only candidate with the experience, qualifications, and management acumen to do that.
Beautiful. Chuck, go ahead.
This shouldn't be a difficult question, but I really want to hear your response to it. So how will you ensure the best possible outcome for the county's citizens?
So going back to why we're elected as assessors, it's because we need to make sure that annual roll that we produce every year is done fairly, accurately, ethically, and timely, right? And knowing the law. So I already know the laws. I've defended the laws. I've advised on the laws. And so to ensure it's a positive outcome for our citizens, we need to, starting at the top, starting with the assessor, we need to make sure we lead and instill this professionalism of ethics and fairness in how we process these different assessments. Meaning, it doesn't matter your zip code, it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter if you are a resident, commercial developer, business property owner, it doesn't matter. We're going to assess you fairly. We're going to treat everyone equitably. And that is our role. And we need to make sure we have leaders. And you can look at my record, I'm on the city council. I've been president of the Cities Association of Santa Clara County, which is the organization for all our city councils in the 15 cities. And in these roles, many people have titles. In these roles, I've led efforts. So, for example, I led a mental health awareness initiative across the county. That was well received, where I was able to work with city managers and city attorneys and pull this together. There's still signs all over the county that we worked on. As a council member, mayor, vice mayor in Los Altos, I worked with Supervisor Simidian to move forward the first ever 100% affordable housing development in Los Altos that we broke ground a couple weeks ago. I also worked with Supervisor Ellenberg on the first childcare subsidy program when she was advocating and having different city councils adopt resolutions. In addition to that, I worked with my council to adopt our first ever childcare subsidy program. 2 days ago, we actually just opened new bike lanes on El Camino, and I was one of 3 votes that voted to support having bike lanes on El Camino. And so I can point to different things in these different leadership roles, which I'll also bring to the assessor's office, where I measure my own performance and I will measure the outcome. And I will want to make sure that as assessor, we're doing well. And if we're not, how do we improve? Because that's how I lead. And that's what I think we should all do when we take these very important positions.
I knew I wanted to hear that answer. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is very informative.
Let me unmute myself. I've learned so much. I appreciate you, Nisa, your experience, your expertise, and your passion. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Nisa Bylor for, as it relates to her running for county assessor?
Yes, I have a question. So what made you interested in first working in the assessor office, to begin with?
Great question. So I worked in county council, and how county council works is you get assigned to different departments. They look at, the work you've done in the office and which department needs attorneys. And so you get assigned. And in my case, we had an attorney who retired. And so the assessor's office has 2 attorneys supporting it. And so one attorney retired. And so they needed a second attorney. And I had the great, based on my, resume, they assigned me to the assessor's office. So I will admit, years ago, I knew nothing about the assessor's office when I got the assignment, because there are many departments in the county and you get assigned. And when you're an attorney, you just have to learn your client's business. And so I got assigned to the assessor's office, met Larry Stone, met a lot of his team. That, no surprise, a lot of them are still there. And I loved the work. As I said, it's very law driven, but it's also very process driven. We do the same thing every year with the role and the activities and the work that's related to every month. So it's very process driven, and it's all governed by different laws. So really loved the work, loved the process, loved defending the assessments, the appeals of the assessed value. And also loved the office. It is a very collaborative, professional office, and made friends there. Some of them are still there. So love the office, love the work. And then I so that was before I ran for city council, Elizabeth. So then, ran for city council and became an elected official. So always liked the idea that it's work I love, it's work I know, it's important work. And if I want to continue doing public service, that would be a great fit based on all those things.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Yes. Anissa, so in terms of assessing properties, is there a template or checklist that is used? And also, how are comps put together when they are in, say, different zip codes or even different counties? Or not different counties, but different neighborhoods with different zip codes within the county?
So thanks for that question, Derek. So there's no checklist per se, and it depends on the type of property. As I mentioned at the beginning, property in Santa Clara County is vast, right? And so I'll start with what we in the assessor's office may consider the simplest property to assess, and that would be a condo, right? And so if we have an entry level person coming in, like with a real estate appraisal license, and this is their first job in the assessor's office, we may want to give them one of the simpler properties that, notice I didn't say easy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're working with a new employee, then we do go through, the things that person needs to consider, but they also need to do, because it's very property specific. You may think this condo is the same as the condo down the hallway, but there are unique things that they will have to learn about the condo. They look at the permit that was pulled. We pull the building information. So there are different things they have to do that may be unique in their assessment. But at a high level, yes, for simple assessments, we come up with, okay, these are the things you need to look at. And most times, the list is shorter. You're looking at comparables, you're looking at the actual building, the year of the building, the tenants. So I could even go through those simplers, but for commercial properties or business personal properties like equipment, laptops, computers like an HP or AI company, data centers, that's more complex, where at a high level you can say this is what the law requires and these are the different valuation methods that could apply, but it's specific to that property and how they assess that property. And that's why we need professionals doing it, right? That's why we need people who know the laws and the different methods and when to apply what and when. With regards to comparables, it depends on the comparable, right? So for example, if we have, I'm going to just use, let's say the first data center had opened in Santa Clara County. In order for us to assess that data center, then maybe we would need to look to another county that's comparable to say, how did they assess it, right? Because we have nothing here to compare it to. So that's when we would look to another county. But most times for comparables, you're looking in the same geographic area. And comparables is just one of the factors. As I said, for a condo, comparables may play a bigger role. But for the other more complex properties, comparables is one of the factors we consider, but it's just one of many.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this point, if there's no other questions, let me know if there are.
Am I able
We're
to ask
gonna,
one?
who was that?
Am I able to ask one?
Oh, yes, of course. Go ahead.
Hey, Nisa.
Hello.
You noted a priority related to implementing new technology. And we've heard recent issues of examples of technology implementations leading to huge disruptions, like with BART. And so I'm just curious, what would you do to ensure that the priority is both met and avoid significant disruptions?
Oh, great question. And I'm glad you asked, because there's been so much talk about technology in the assessor's office. And I want to emphasize we need and use technology to do the work we do in the assessor's office. But the work we do in the assessor's office is not technology. So when you hear about folks talking about they're going to manage implementation of the technology, I have engineers in our office doing that, because that is not the work of our office. The work of our office is assessing values. So we are very cognizant of that, Mayor. And what we've done is, so we have our old system. We're still operating on our old system. And we plan to go live with the new system based on our timeline, 2027. We have a 2-year timeline. With these implementation projects, it's a COT solution with customization. We do have a 3-year term in the contract to allow for implementation. our plan is not to roll out module by module. We want the fully built system before we roll it out and go live. And we do plan to shut down our old system and go live and fully operate on the new system. But we will be doing test cases, testing, training. Before we go live, going back to what Derek was asking about check boxes, we're going to make sure that that system is fully ready to go with all the functionality we need, all the data is migrated in, and we're ready to go live with that system. So we won't close down the AIM system, which is our old system, until we can confirm that this new system is ready to go. And we will test it, multiple times before we go live. And the good news is the vendor that we're working with, this vendor has implemented a similar solution in 2 other comparable California counties. And that was important to us. We wanted a California compliant solution where they've actually implemented and gone live with that solution. So it's been vetted in other counties before us. So we're not the guinea pig, and that was intentional. So we're going with a tried and true solution, at least in California. And what's great about the system too is it's not a Texas solution. It's a California solution. That means they already have built-in propositions and laws as part of the process. And so, with implementation and change management and all the things that go along with such large projects, we're not fooling ourselves. There will be hiccups. We tell our team all the time, things won't always go well. We may fall off the track. It's okay. But we do have a great plan in place. And our plan also builds in all these possibilities, and we have contingency plans. We're not going in blindly and thinking, oh, this is going to be, rainbow and perfect.
Thank you so much for all the questions. If anyone doesn't have another question, we're gonna go to Nisa's closing statement.
Well, thank you again, Tamara. Really appreciate it. I'll just end by saying, I think I've talked enough, but I'll say, there are 4 candidates in the race. And what I say about the other candidates, we're all public servants, we're all elected officials. I have admiration and appreciation for all elected officials because it's a big sacrifice that we make because we want to serve and give back to our communities. But what you'll realize and what's important for voters to understand is the other candidates are saying they're going to do things that I am already doing. So, for example, modernizing the technology in the office, we've already done some modernization, and the specific technology they're talking about, I'm already moving forward with implementing it. The second thing is they'll talk about they're going to fix things in the office that aren't broken. They're talking about fixing our customer service. Our customer service rating is 92.8% positive. It's not perfect. There are always areas of improvement, but it's not broken. And I, as the next assessor, will continue to look for ways to improve it and make our office more accessible. And then the third thing is you'll hear them say they're going to do things that an assessor does not have the authority to do. For example, we do not have the authority to exempt seniors from paying property taxes. And one of the reasons why all the other candidates are saying these things is because they really don't know our office. They don't know the work. And it's important for this office to make sure we elect someone who does. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for answering all our questions and for educating us this evening. So we are going to hear from Elizabeth on regarding some Measure A and Prop 50 information. Then we'll have one Google form to vote on the endorsement for county assessor, whether or not we're endorsing Measure A and whether or not we're endorsing Prop 50. So
Tomorrow. I'm going to go, just so you know, I'm actually still in San Jose. So I'm going to head home. But thank you. Nice seeing you. Tony, are you awake over there?
Well, thank you so much for making the time.
No,
I really
thank you all. Nice seeing you. And see you all soon.
I was wondering how you got home so quick because I
know, right? Me too.
Nope.
Thank you, Lisa.
That's the beauty of like the virtual background.
Thank you,
All
Lisa.
right, thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Lisa.
Okay, thank you all.
You. Okay, Elizabeth, are you ready to share?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
so much. Okay, so we can start off with Measure A. And so what Measure A proposes to do is put a 5/8 cent sales tax. So that would be, was it 0.0625%, sales tax in order to generate an income that would go to saving our hospitals, keeping the emergency rooms and trauma centers open. This is extremely important because of the HR1 federal bill that passed, which proposes $1 trillion cut across the United States. But what that means for Santa Clara County is a loss of $1 billion in funding. And so Measure A proposes to generate around $330 million that could then go into our hospital systems to keep hospitals open. And this is important because even a person who has private insurance, if they were to get in a catastrophic accident or need to seek emergency medical care, they would be taken to the nearest public hospital within the Valley Medical System. So this is, we're talking about life-saving support that we need in order to keep everyone healthy and be able to provide people with as much resources as we can. So that's Measure A. Now shifting gears towards Prop 50. So Prop 50, oh, also one thing about Measure A is that it is a temporary. So that sales tax, it's for the next 5 years and ends in 2030. Also, Prop 50 proposes temporary changes to the congressional district maps in response to what they're doing in Texas in terms of redistricting. And so Prop 50 would allow California to gain 5 additional congressional seats. And this is also temporary for the next 5 years. Yeah, so that's information about that. And I encourage everyone to look at their voter guides, ballots, and have dropped already and should be in people's mailboxes. So look at your voter guides, look online at the respective websites. And yeah, just do your own education on these, this one measure and one proposition.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. As I said before, we were on YouTube live streaming this candidate forum, so I'm going to end that, and then we will have the Google form for our vote on endorsement.